Okay, so things on Capitol Hill have escalated, and I mean they've escalated fast. We're talking about a fatal shooting that leads to a shouting match on the House floor, and now the threat of impeaching a cabinet secretary. We're going to break down exactly how one single incident in Minneapolis sent these massive shockwaves all the way to the top of the U.S. government.
And this, right here, is the quote that basically lit the fuse. Sources say this is what Representative Angie Craig, a Democrat from Minnesota, said straight to the House Majority Whip, Republican Tom Emmer. I mean, think about that. It's a huge accusation, laying the blame for someone's death right at the feet of her political rivals.
So you have this incredibly charged moment. On one side, you've got this direct accusation, blaming a political party for a death. And on the other, just an angry, dismissive take-a-walk. This wasn't some formal debate for the cameras. This was a raw, face-to-face clash between two powerful members of Congress who actually represent the very same state.
So let's zoom in on this eruption on Capitol Hill. You know, this wasn't some argument happening behind closed doors. This went down right there on the House floor. And it really just pulls back the curtain on how deep the tensions are running right now.
40 seconds. That's it. Just think about that for a second. That's all the time it took for this entire shouting match to happen. It was short, for sure, but unbelievably intense. Just a flashpoint that packed a ton of political anger into less than a minute.
And you can really tell just how heated things got from this detail. It got to the point where another colleague, Representative Betty McCollum, had to physically step in and guide Representative Craig away from the argument. I mean, when other lawmakers have to start breaking things up, you know the situation has gone way beyond a typical political disagreement.
So that brings us to the big question, right? What could possibly spark this level of fury between colleagues? Well, to understand that, we have to go back to the event that started it all, an incident in Minneapolis that ended up being the catalyst for this whole political firestorm.
Here it is, the absolute core of the issue. The source of all this anger and confrontation was the fatal shooting of a woman in Minneapolis, and the person who fired the shot was an officer from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. This one event was the first domino to fall, and it set everything else in motion. Now, according to Representative Dealey Ramirez, these details right here are crucial for understanding the outrage. The woman who was killed, she was a U.S. citizen, she was 37 years old, and she was white. Democrats really emphasize these facts to make a point, that their issues with the agency go far beyond just immigration status.
So the reaction to the shooting wasn't just that one shouting match, not even close. It spread like wildfire through the Democratic caucus, and it led to this wave of outrage and immediate demands for some very serious action. Representative Ramirez of Illinois really summed up the feeling with this quote. She said the mood on her side of the aisle was livid. We're not just talking about frustration or disagreement here. This was a shared, collective anger over what they felt was an unjust killing.
And then Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez widened the lens. For her and many others, this wasn't just some tragic, isolated incident. She framed it as part of a much bigger, more dangerous pattern of behavior from ICE, suggesting the agency's actions are becoming totally disconnected from its actual mission.
And pretty quickly, all this talk turned to action. This wasn't just about making angry statements. Some Democrats started floating one of the biggest weapons in their political arsenal, threatening a government shutdown to use as leverage to cut ICE's funding and force some major policy changes.
But it didn't even stop there. The response then escalated to one of the most severe actions possible in Washington, a formal call for impeachment. And this is where it all led. Representative Robin Kelly from Illinois announced she was officially going to introduce articles of impeachment against the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. This move draws a direct line from the shooting in Minneapolis all the way to an attempt to remove the head of the entire department that ICE is a part of.
So what are the official charges? Well, the articles of impeachment as laid out by Representative Kelly are built on these three pillars: obstruction of justice, violation of public trust, and self-dealing. Let's be clear, these are incredibly serious charges to level against a sitting cabinet secretary.
And here's how Representative Kelly herself justified the decision. She drew this really sharp line between what she considers incompetence and what she believes are straight-up impeachable offenses. She said that her duty to her constituents was forcing her to fight back against what she calls a clear violation of the rule of law.
All right, so after this whirlwind of escalation, from a shooting to a shouting match to a call for impeachment, where do things even stand right now? Let's take a look at the immediate aftermath.
Well, as of the latest reports, the main response has been silence. The Department of Homeland Security, the agency right in the middle of this whole storm, hasn't offered any comment on the shooting or the move to impeach its leader. And honestly, that lack of response just adds to the tension hanging over everything.
And that pretty much leaves us right here. We've seen just how fast a single event can ignite a massive political firestorm that starts to consume Congress. So the question that this all leaves hanging in the air is a pretty powerful one. In an environment this charged, what's the next domino to fall?